Okay, let's go ahead and kick this off.
Yeah.
Hello, Kim.
Hello.
Hello, Amaris. Hello, Pleiades. Hello, Clarity. Mark, Sam.
Hi.
Hello, Self.
How much? Yeah, that's good.
Hello, Self.
Remember yourself. Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. Right. Welcome yourself to something like this. So I want to start it off. How do I want to start it off? Let me ask you, do you have any kind of criteria or grid for doing groundwork? Have you thought about this? Or is it just kind of a roll of the dice each time? Do you have a process?
I wouldn't say.
You know what groundwork is, actually. Let's start there, just in case.
Okay.
Right? If someone doesn't know what groundwork is, let me know and I'll adjust my pitch accordingly.
I know a little, very
Okay.
little.
What would you say groundwork is then?
Working on the words and letters and finding the meanings of them or what symbol they represent.
Okay, that's the process of it, and you're right. Those are some of the tools of the trade. I would say groundwork, if I had to define it, is an application of natural law, culminating, or I should say combining with one's white stock. In other words, what one knows, what one has come into contact with, to dig into truth, to find the truth of things. Yeah, and so we use a lot of different tools, don't we? We use things like anagrams and determining the root numbers and the alpha curial bet and symbol and all sorts of things, right? Yeah, okay. Are you guys happy with that definition?
Yeah.
Maybe a better one will present itself. Hi, Sachin.
Hello. Good morning. Good evening, everybody.
Good morning, good evening, and good night. Yes. Good. So the question on the table is, do you have a grid, or what was the other word I used?
Criteria?
Criteria. Yeah, thank you. Criteria for doing groundwork.
For myself, it's not quite. Yeah, hang on. I'll come at it a different way. It's not haphazard. It's when wanting to get into something or being caused to or being moved to get into something, then it's to try to understand, not just understand as host people how that works, but to get it to a place of using and working the groundwork to actually get to something. And one of the ways to know if that's working is what it feels like when doing it. Second one is what atmosphere turns up.
Okay.
And third one is does ideas and perceptions drop in that haven't been thought of before? Atmosphere.
Okay. What's the second? These are the checks. These are the checks to see if groundwork is working, right? Otherwise, it's ground not work.
Yeah.
Right. What attends? Well, I suppose that's partly to do with atmospheres, right? Because you can't have an atmosphere without something attending.
Yeah. The second one would be what it's causing in me, how I feel inside.
Internal process.
Yeah.
And the third
one would be trying to think of a word for it.
Talk around it. We'll find the word.
Occurring, perceptions.
Attendance. I think attendance does have to go. You can't have an atmosphere without attendance, but You can't have
It's what the
attendance without an
attendance
atmosphere. Huh?
Yeah, it's what the attendance causes, i.e.,
Yeah.
being
Right.
able to weave things together that hadn't been woven together before. And
Cross weaving. There you go.
yeah, cross weaving.
I don't know. We should think about it a bit more before putting a word. Cross weaving seems very abstract to me.
Yeah, we'll get there.
What we're doing, we're working it.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the cross weaving would then lead to new perception.
So should we scratch cross weave and put in perception?
No, because the perception would come as a result of the cross weave.
Okay. Good. We'll continue to refine this. All right. I've got my own criteria, my own way into groundwork, and it's refining, honestly, over the past, especially past couple of days. I think you sent me an email about what you've been picking up on. What's the criteria for engagement now? So we have the checks and balances, right, to know if it's working. What's the criteria? What do you need in order to be able to do groundwork in the first place?
If I could interrupt, sorry, I joined just a minute late. What are we trying to do? Can you just?
I had asked the question if you have any kind of grid or criteria for conducting groundwork exercises. Groundwork being the application of natural law to your own stock of knowledge that you've come into contact with throughout your life, and the outcome being new perceptions and esoteric knowledge and learnings regarding whatever it is you're trying to unlock. Yeah. So you can do groundwork on Egypt, for example, or groundwork on religion or whatever the case is, right? And get more out of it, dig into it.
Yeah, I have a check that I want to add to that, and that's which why question does it answer? I mean, I don't know if I'm saying that. Which why, like why am I doing it? Which
that
why
would belong
question?
over here. That would belong over in reason, right?
Sure. Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So check would be check. The check of it is what is the expected change in me? Maybe it's along the line. So it's like, is it gonna help me get healthier, more patient,
verification,
more mindful, or whatever that is? That would be a check. Like I know I'm not interested in what makes me wealthy, for example, at this point from this group, but I'm very interested in what helps me make calmer and less stressed out and more mindful and more aware.
Okay, good. You nailed one of the primary purposes. You have to have, sorry, I'm out of camera. You have to have some sort of reason for doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. What's another criteria for the actual process of it? Can you guys see this? Okay.
Yes.
You read it? I'm trying to write big enough. Yeah.
How much effort is it? How much, like, is it going to be, an hour every day for the next year? Or is it going to be wake up, first thing you do is take 5 breaths and do something? It's like 5 minutes every day.
Why do you suppose that's a fundamental property?
The less the effort it is, the easier it is to make it a habit, and the easier it is to keep doing it, no matter what goes on with your life.
That's more of a maintenance aspect. I'm talking about the process itself. What's required, right? If you're going to make a cake, you're going to need certain ingredients. Yeah. The amount of time it takes to make a particular cake is another aspect, right? It's another aspect to performance of doing that. But I'm talking about more of the fundamental ingredients. I do agree with you, Sachin, that the reason why you're working into something is very important. What else is important?
You need to have intention or desire.
Reason and motive. We'll just say that, okay? Is that accurate for you? Reason or intent, maybe? play with this. Nothing's fixed in stone. What about what we call white stock, white being thinking? Is that important? Right? Is it important to know a lot about a lot of things to do groundwork?
Depends on the things. But yes, it is important to be well-read, to be knowledgeable, and have a scope of knowledge beyond just what's in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Open your blindfolds, so to speak.
Right. We don't live in the age of encyclopedia anymore. We have Wikipedia, don't we? But are you the kind of person that if we didn't have Wikipedia would have an encyclopedia set?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Good.
That
Britannica
was
or what?
Britannica. That was one of the first books that I read. Like literally, I think I read it when I was 6. Like
Yeah.
literally one of the first books I read. It's
The
pretty awesome.
encyclopedia. Yeah, great. What about a dictionary? Do you have dictionaries
Yes.
sitting around? Yeah, good. What about books on etymology? The roots of words. No? Yeah. All right.
I think
That would be in our dictionary.
Yeah, in a good one.
Yeah.
You're right.
usually
Hang on.
there's
I've got to show you this. I've got to show you.
You're right.
The compact edition of the English dictionary.
the really thick Oxford has like the
Right.
word, the pronunciation,
It is.
the root, the history, and
This
a
is-
sample.
From Latin, blah 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 blah. Yes, exactly. Right.
Hang on.
Oh,
Right.
what you got? Look at that.
Hold
Look
on, wait.
at that. You guys could have a
Part one,
war.
part two. Yeah.
Compact
You could have a war with those things, right?
Yeah. I'm not so sure because you wouldn't be able to throw them far.
That's a lethal weapon right there. You won't be allowed to board an airline with that anymore.
Yeah, right. You know, when I was a child, probably 10 years old or something like that, I had I was really into computers back then, and so I wanted to know everything I possibly could about them. And there is a very low-level coding language in computer design called assembly language. And so I went out and bought this book, or I guess convinced my guardians to buy this book called Programming the 6502 in Assembly Language. 6502 was the microprocessor of the Apple II computer that I was really into at the time. And I didn't really understand much of it, right? But and I got a lot of shit from it from other kids in school, right? Because I kind of nerding out on my book. Back then, to be a nerd wasn't a good thing. Yeah, get beat up for it, but it was big, and I had a self-defense tool, so I could always chuck it at somebody who's chasing me or something like that, right? Okay, so white stock, that's very important. What else? What's another ingredient to groundwork?
I don't know if this is ingredient or I'm not sure, but I'll just put it out. Support, in the sense that what I mean from that is, in our current culture, at least, if you're walking around on the streets like an Egyptian, the cops might arrest you. And
If you what? Wait,
You're
say
walking
that again?
around if you're walking around the streets, around the block, like an
Yeah.
Egyptian, the cops might arrest you, or the paddy wagon might arrest you.
Right.
And so it's like, hey, what is this guy? Is he crazy? So
Unless you're Steve Martin.
sure, I'm not. So I mean, I'm
Help walk like an Egyptian. You don't know the song?
No, I know that, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, okay.
But what I'm saying is, if you have support, I don't know if it's needed. Really. If you don't have support, you just do it anyway.
Hmm.
But if you have support, then it's going to accelerate. Like if you have a partner in crime to do it with you.
Right.
Good, best way to describe is it a team effort or is it a solo thing? Like if you have a team, whatever you're doing, it's a it's a flywheel. Like one person does something, the other person gets motivated. The other person does this, the first person gets motivated. It just flies off itself. It's just
Yeah.
motivated.
I'll put down
And
generative
the-
support. Yeah, I like it.
Sure. Yeah.
Great. There's one ingredient in my estimation that separates something like groundwork from research. Yeah, because if we don't throw in this key ingredient, everyone will say, well, you know, all throughout school, I was doing groundwork, when that's not really what we're talking about, right? Or scientists are doing groundwork. They might be, but the key ingredient is captured in the phrase "as above, so below." And what I mean by that is this kind of fundamental aspect of groundwork, where something is like something else. I'll give you an example. All right. Do we have this? Did someone capture this in their notes?
Have you got it?
I have
Yeah, you
this.
got it? Okay,
Yeah.
Got it.
great. I'm going to remove this. This will be my working board here for a minute. Now, if you've been around this with me for any length of time, you'll have heard the lesson on the ray of creation, right? Because I feel like it's one of the very fundamental things. And you'll have encountered the explanation of the shock or the missing semitones, yeah, in the idea of the ray of creation. Now, do you see how this applies to water, for example? I'll just give you one example, but there are thousands of them out there. But do you see how the fundamental aspect, what plays out in the various states of water, also shows the idea of the shock in the ray of creation? Are you familiar with it?
Everyone's gone quiet.
Huh? Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
so I'll give it to you. All right, I'll just
No.
give you this, and then you can start looking for other examples of this. Water in its liquid state. Well, water has three states, I suppose four, but we'll three that naturally occur on Earth. One is solid, we call that ice. One is liquid, water, and one is gas, we call that steam. Okay, now, if you play around with the temperatures of water, and you know, you like in school, you have this Bunsen burner, yeah, and you're heating up an ice cube, you're going to notice this sort of curve where the water slowly, if you have a thermometer in there, slowly gets warmer. I'm sorry, the ice does, or the temperature sensor, and then all of a sudden it levels off for a long time and then breaks through again. This is ice, dead zone, water, and it does this for a while and it hits another dead zone and then goes up to steam. These dead zones here, what I mean is, like, you know, if you're measuring temperature over time, you're going to have 2 points where you throw a lot of energy into something, but the temperature doesn't move, right? The temperature stays the same. And all of a sudden, several seconds go by, or a minute or whatever, a couple of minutes go by, and all of a sudden it breaks through and it transitions into a different form, into a different stage. That's the ray of creation. That is a mechanical or physical property of one of the fundamental laws of creation, which has to do with the progression of something. Anytime you progress from one thing to another, or go through an octave, because you can see, right, that ice can be likened to a different octave of water, which is a different octave from steam. You encounter these dead zones. Yeah, the missing semitones on a keyboard, a piano, yeah, the black keys, missing semitones. It's not invention. They literally just don't exist. And if you were to try and jam a semitone in there, I mean, talking about the frequencies of each note, if you were to try and jam a semitone in there, it would sound anharmonic, disharmonic. It would grate on you. Yeah, you don't even have to be a musician to know when a note is off. Yeah, listening to a musical piece and someone twangs the wrong note, right? We have a natural inborn instinct about that, don't we? But would you have known to look for this? Could you have predicted this? That's actually a better question, right? If you were a scientist and you had convinced yourself that this idea of octaves and missing semitones and shocks and so on and so forth is a real thing, it's a real natural law, would you have then been able to go predict that if you were to apply temperature over time combination with an ice cube turning to eventually to steam, that you would hit these dead zones? See, that's groundwork, right? And what I'm talking about is this idea of as above, so below, or maybe a better way to put it would be simile, similitude. One thing is similar to another. If it's based in natural law, you're going to find it not just in one example. You're gonna find it all over the place. Yeah, and look at growing up. You could divide that into seven phases. Yeah. And look for where you would encounter those shocks. You're going to find them. Yeah, one of them is at puberty, by the way. All right. Do you see what I'm on about, though? This is one of those fundamental ideas. And I think I had shared out with all of you more than a month ago, I believe it was, my spoken recordings of Leo's writings on astrology, because I wanted to give you a sense and a flavor. Do you remember that when I shared those out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to give you all a sense and a flavor for the style of groundwork that Leo was using, where he was talking about, because Mars, therefore, right? A lot of because therefores, you would expect that type of thing in there. It was this analogous reasoning with it. That's a good way into groundwork. So how do we say this? We'll just say law of analogy.
Can I comment a little bit? I wanted
Yeah,
to
of
go a
course.
little bit deeper in
This
this.
is open. Go ahead.
This is goosebumps time. What you just said. It's if we can figure it out, if we can figure out whether we are in a dead zone or a shock in anything, and this exists, I can just think of 4 or 5 things just off the top of my head where it exists. It exists in habits. It exists in puberty. You just talked about our life. Where I've seen it exist in a massive way, in a big, very visible way, is in business and startups. Absolutely. And stocks. It's crazy how big it is. If you spot where we are for any kind of large venture, if you spot where you are in that curve, yeah, the impact is huge.
And furthermore, I have absolutely agree with you. Furthermore, if you know the nature of each note, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, right? You will even be able to predict exactly what a business will be going through at any point in time.
You can make probabilistic guesstimates, because the more complicated the system that you're studying, the more unpredictable it becomes. So a business.
And the reason for that is because it's not linear, right? You've got one octave and other octaves are crossing it, right?
Yes.
So you've got a bunch of, it's a cobweb, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So for a business is probably, I'd be Warren Buffett if I could do it. So that it's still probably possible. But for smaller entities like me, myself, or my habits, or my health, or my motivation level in a day or a week or in a month, all of that is very predictable. It's very controllable if you just understand where we are.
Yeah.
And then consciously say, hey, I'm having a shitty day. Okay, what do I need to do? All right.
Even in a personal development journey.
Yes.
It's the same thing. Yeah. It goes everywhere.
So it's very powerful. That's what I was saying. This is goosebumps time.
Well done. Yeah. Let's see if I can get this right. Bear with me while I struggle. Let's see. It's going to get too long. Do you know what this is? I'm going to dip back into your chemistry courses. What's this formula for? Do you have any idea?
Is that ammonia or what?
This is CO2, right? Carbon
No, the
dioxide.
end product. The end product.
Huh?
C2C.
No, it's not. It's CH2O as one molecule plus O2 plus H2O. So we've got some ingredients going into the pot here. This is carbon dioxide and water. One carbon dioxide and two molecules of water produces a carbohydrate here, oxygen here, and water here, but less water than what went into it. This is the formula for photosynthesis, and I'm pretty sure I got it right. Okay, I might have got it a little bit wrong, but this is very, very curious. And by the way, now I'm really going to struggle. Give me a moment. Let me think. C55H72, Mg, magnesium, sodium, 4, and oxygen, 5. Someone can double check me on this. Anyone looking it up?
Is it chlorophyll? I'm not.
Yeah.
looking.
Well done.
It's a
Chlorophyll.
catalyst. Yeah, it has to be. It's very complex.
Chlorophyll. Okay, so we'll come back to this in a minute. All right, that's chlorophyll. And this, obviously, coming in would be light. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about a process of photosynthesis, but we're going to look at it from the standpoint of natural law and see if we can discover something interesting in it. All right. Basically, what this is saying is that you take two ingredients plus light plus chlorophyll, right, as the catalyst or the reaction chamber in which this occurs, and you end up with a glucose here. Someone double check me. I'm not sure about that oxygen molecule at the end. I'd have to do the math of it. Seems right. Anyway, but you end up with glucose here. In other words, you end up with stored energy from the sun. Yeah. And a rabbit comes along and eats it, and they metabolize it. And then, a human comes by and eats the rabbit or whatever. Yeah. And they metabolize it. But in the end, what's happening here is that you're taking sunlight and putting it in a bottle. Yeah. But you're also doing something else. What is O2? Do you understand the process here, right? CO2, that's what we breathe out, right? When you exhale, you're exhaling carbon dioxide, you're exhaling spent air. Yeah. It's poisonous for you. You have to get it out. That's the input for a plant. And they kick out something that we can breathe, O2. And so they produce more oxygen back into the environment. That then presumably, if you can call us a higher life form, comes along and eats. Now I'm going somewhere with this, because I want you to think about it in metaphorical, esoteric terms. Can we say, let's just play around with something here. Can we say, for example, that CO2, what's the analog of that? What's the analog of water in the human complex and around the human complex? I would say the analog of CO2 might be our experiences. We'll play around and see. Okay, I'm trying to do some live groundwork for you so that you understand the process. All right.
Is
Yeah.
it experiences, or is it our perception or reaction to those experiences?
Well, so I say experiences only because this is external to the plant, right? The plant is there. Well, that's the other thing, right? The plant itself has to exist, doesn't it? And it draws in something from the air around it. It's really puzzled me when I was younger. Looking at a plant grow, I couldn't understand why it didn't sink as it grew, because I thought, you put a plant in a pot and it kind of eats whatever is underneath it to grow its leaves and all that. That's not the way that it works. It actually eats the air around it. All the carbon in the air is what becomes that physical material in the plant, right? That's why a plant doesn't eat itself into a hole. Yeah. So CO2, something in the air, and then H2O, something in the ground coming in. What are the analogs of that? We're mostly water anyway, aren't we? So could we say that we have a body, we have something that comes in from the planet and something that comes from our environment? Maybe it's our soul. Maybe this would be our soul, right? Because that's issued from the planet. And what comes from the environment? Our perceptions. You're right, Sachin. Our impressions, our perceptions of things. Yeah, it comes in and it mixes with the soul, or at least it has the potential to. But what about this? What's the analog of chlorophyll in us? And what's the analog of light? Am I losing everybody?
No.
A little bit. I think I'm not quite following the. Maybe this is not a good analogy.
Right. So what I'm going to try to do is this. Got all this? We'll come back to it. It's a work in progress. All right.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is scientists have worked out how the process of photosynthesis takes place, right? And they've put carbon and hydrogen and glucose and oxygen and water and magnesium and nitrogen and all of these different things, light, together in a nice formula. I'm trying to see if there's a spiritual analog to this, because there's an interesting thing about it, right? When you're driving your car, Mark, you probably read this already. When you're driving your car, you're driving sunshine. You start it up and you're driving sunshine millions of years ago, right? Some plant went, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And got covered over and, became oil in time. But literally, it's a storage mechanism. All right, play it is. Okay,
So-
she's muted again. It's all right.
Pierce, I think what you're maybe, let me make sure I'm trying to. You're saying, what is the source of energy of is that or the simile of the source of energy in the human system? What is it? Is that your question?
Yeah, kind of. I think this is an analog to a personal development journey, or at least the possibility of one. Because we'll take this bit here, okay? This CH2O. Sam, would you look it up and see if I'm right about all this?
Hang on. Which bit in particular, or
Oh,
generally?
We'll take your word for it, Pierce. It
okay,
doesn't
for
really
now,
matter.
take my
looks
word
right.
for it. But
Take your word for it.
What I
Yeah,
remember from
form.
chemistry, it looks right. You've got the right number of atoms. on
atoms
both sides
going
of
around.
it.
Yeah.
It,
Here-
it looks right.
Here's what I'm on about, okay? Here's what I'm on about. Let me bring this down. What if we could devise a formula that shows how to create an astral body? Because I would say that if an astral body comes anywhere into this equation, it's going to be right there, right? It's going to be that stored energy from what one connects to. That's what an astral body is.
Yeah.
Just like a plant stores sugars, well, glucose, and it's energy. It's like energy in a bottle, isn't it? Sunshine in a bottle. So we say X, we'll just identify what that is, plus Y equals, we'll call this astral. Please understand, this is not a lesson. This is a lesson in groundwork. You see, whether we're right or wrong on this is okay. Doesn't matter. Okay. Astral plus, no, that would be, yeah, it'd have to be A. Plus B. No, plus Y. Okay. Now fill in the X, Y, and A. What do we have here? What makes an astral body? God, I just had a revelation about something. Hope I'm not making your head
Thoughts.
hurt. Huh?
Thoughts. Thoughts.
One more time.
Thoughts.
Thought.
When we think, thoughts.
Thoughts. Right. Thoughts. Okay. Where would that go?
And-
Here? Let's talk about the nature of X. X is something outside of you.
Okay.
Right? Just like in a plant. Talking about this carbon
So,
dioxide.
Pierce is so one thing's outside and one thing's inside. I want to make sure that we don't try to fit a square hole in a,
Yeah.
fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Right? And I think what he's saying, there's something from the outside and there's something from the inside, and what comes out is something inside stored, available, accessible, and something else that comes out, and
What
whatever
about
else
this?
comes out.
What about personality? I'm just gonna say personal because I'll run out of room. And essence. Let's play with that for a second. This inspiration, right? The light coming in. Spirit here, right? Because it's your spirit that can kind of do all of this. It's the chloroform, it's that chloroform body. So personality plus essence with inspiration or something therein, something coming in, an external energy source coming in from the outside, creates an astral body plus, this is so curious, O2. You see in the case of a plant that it kicks out a food for a higher being. In the case of a human, if you have the right kind of process, angels will come eat from you, eat from your table.
Yes, that is the, in very simple terms that we're familiar with. It's our aura, right? Whatever
right.
we eat, we generate an aura. It's a nasty aura for nasty people. It's a good aura
Right.
for good people, or it is no aura for somebody who's depleted. And it goes big and small, and however it is, depending on how your system's performing.
Yeah. Would you agree this idea that plants provide sustenance for a higher life form?
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of, see, I'm drawing these analogies. Please forgive me. I'm adding it up too. Okay. So this isn't a lesson. This is a lesson in groundwork, not in photosynthesis. But we can say, okay, if we have the right conditions, if we have this spirit, which would be the chlorophyll, I always want to say chloroform, but yeah, chlorophyll. If we have the spirit in attendance, and it is subject to some sort of invigorating power, a force like inspiration, yeah, love, light, life, whatever these things might be in here. That's the sunshine coming in. Yeah. And you have the ecology with your personality and essence. Then you have the potential of forming something stored. Right? Stored inspiration, if you will, stored light, stored love, stored life.
Good potential.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is curious. And a byproduct of this is that you begin to attract rabbits. You begin to attract angels, right? Something higher than you comes to breathe your atmosphere because it can't get it any other way. You see, that's the O2 that the plants kick off, oxygen. And then there's another curious aspect because this is H2O, which corresponds to this Y back here, but just less of it. This is giving something back to the planet, isn't it? Right? I mean, the water came from the planet, and one of the byproducts of all this is a little bit of water back. So now you're making a return to the planet. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you suppose? This is curious too. Do you know where magnesium comes from?
Come on, man. You should know this.
Magnesium is born in old stars.
Neutron stars or
Ancient
collision of,
stars.
yeah.
I believe it's three helium atoms crashing into a carbon atom. Yeah, and talking about like at solar cores of things. I believe so. Makes magnesium. Can't make it here. Got to have a stellar ecology to do it. Kind of like your spirit. Can't make that here. Yeah, that spiritual aspect. And goodness, C55, that's a really heavy carbon chain, isn't it? H72, pretty heavy hydrogen isotope. All of this speaks to a star level process, something that can't be made here. Everything is condensed, packed. Yeah, not an ecology that this can come from. At least not originally, but it lives here, of course, like chloroform. All right. Mark, how does this sit with you? This is an example.
That's good. One of the things that occurred to me when we were having the first two black balls up was one of the important things about doing groundwork is to be open. It might not work. That particular thing that one's doing on that day, but just having the process of it, having the love of doing it.
Yeah.
And if it ends up going into a complete brick wall, it doesn't matter, because has it actually gone into a complete brick wall? Because it might actually cause something else to occur to yourself.
It can also show you what you're deficient in. Can also show you your, non-judgmentally speaking, your deficiencies, right?
In what way?
Huh? In what way?
Yeah.
Well, think about it from this standpoint. If y'all had a hard time following this, maybe it's time to crack open the chemistry books, but not from the I'm going to study chemistry, but to get an essence understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. If you looked at that formula and went, holy hell, what the hell is this, right? I mean, this came from memory for me. I swear I don't have a, cheat sheet around here, periodic table of the elements hidden off camera or anything like that. That's the white stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you can't follow this, I'm not saying, again, this isn't a lesson, but the lesson is how to do groundwork. Then you need more of that white stock, huh? Right. So that you can come to a board and be able to go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe, right? Maybe there's some correlation here. I don't know if there is or isn't. Kind of makes a lot of sense though.
That does. Yes.
It really does.
Yeah.
This bit, right? That's the stored aspect. That's the immortal aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, right? A plant. Just a ordinary, blade of grass or a whatever, hunk of broccoli. Powering your car 1 million years later. Isn't that immortality of a sort, right? I mean, that's outside of the useful life expectancy of a chunk of broccoli, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It finds usefulness in, well, I hate to say in creation, right? Because I think the planet itself has its own uses for things like coal and oil and natural gases. Yeah. But 1 million years later, it suddenly finds a use in creation because of what it stored, because of what it did with its life. Imagine that. Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, I think that's about right. This A here, this O2, really could have to do with the faculties that end up developing a mental body, right? Because I said an angel will come eat you. Not you, but your product.
Yeah.
Yeah. A plant doesn't feel diminished when we come breathe its air. When we come breathe in, right? When we breathe in the oxygen
Yes,
that it's kicking
I'll be
out.
right back. Give me 1 second. I'll be right
Yeah,
back.
sure.
One more question.
When we breathe in what this plant is kicking out, it doesn't diminish it. In the same way, hey, Mark, say something. I'm looking at a white wall here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say
Great, thanks.
something.
In the same way that when entities, when things come to visit you because of what you're producing, they don't diminish you, right? They're enhanced by the process. And what they exhale goes right back into you.
What is that then? I mean, I think the way we've explained it, I don't know if aura is the most appropriate aspect of.
I think it's a Simulian process of refinement. Most people live their lives like this half of the equation. I would hazard to guess. They've got everything there. They just don't have light. You see, they've got all of these bits. We'll get rid of soul because that belongs over here. They've got the body of the plant. They've got the resources to be able to do it, right? They've got the spirit, right? That C55H72MGN405. Didn't know you're going to learn the formula for your spirit today, did you? But they're not functioning to get this kind of inspiration. Look at that beautiful one. Pleiades would be envious to no end. That's a gorgeous one too. Yeah.
3 years in the making, all
Oh,
real.
wonderful.
Rocket.
Pleiades has a whole collection of them going on upstairs. And I generally borrow one to bring it down so it can enjoy the meeting. But yeah.
I think Pleiades would enjoy meeting my mom.
this is how this is how most people live their life. They can't find the sunlight, can't find the inspiration to be able to make it all possible. And so, yeah, you know, because the byproduct of inspiration or of being lit up, we have those terms like that, don't we? Being lit up by something is angel food, an astral body, a return to the planet. All kinds of good things happen, right? So really, I guess the most important thing, since this is all automatic, this half of the equation, we have it, we have the faculties to do it, is to put ourselves in a position to find that light, to find that inspiration. I mean, plants do it, don't they? They'll kind of like, you know, lean to the sun. They're trying to get more of that. They know if they don't have the sun that they can't produce what they need to. They can't make those reactions. Put a plant in a dark room and it won't be able to make oxygen. Just can't do it. Anyway, groundwork, okay? You have to have certain things in place. This, like I said, this isn't a lesson. Just sort of occurred to me that might be a good way to look at groundwork for a minute. How can you take this elsewhere? I think what's important is to educate and inform yourselves on the way things work. We live in such a wonderful age where there's so many things that you can learn. You can go out and learn about, you know, electromagnetism, chemistry, how the planets, you know, rotate, thermodynamics. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to just be science. You can go learn from history. You can learn from anything. And the more you gather unto yourself, the more able you'll be able to start seeing these kind of correlations with things. This is why all the time I'm harping on, go out and find it for yourself. You know, if you don't know what, if you don't know the nature of blue, for example, or white or whatever, brown, if you don't know the actual nature of it, you have only yourself to blame. As I've said over and over and over again, go out and look for it. Go out and look for it. Collect examples. You do, and I 100% guarantee you that you will reach a critical threshold where you know it. You know it from a cosmic standpoint, not from a cultural standpoint. And for God's sakes, please don't go read books on it, because there's all kinds of people that, well, really, it doesn't even work that way. They don't have opinions on it, right? They read a book that was written by someone else who read a book, that was written by someone else who read a book, and so on and so forth for the past 1,000 years. And you get back to one man or woman, lady, that did what I'm saying to do. You don't have to read a book on someone's opinion of what, blue in the aura means. Go figure it out. That's kind of this aspect of getting this light into your life. It lights you up. Do you know what 6 does in nature? Who can tell me? Who can tell me? I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but what does 6 do in nature? It's a very important number in the natural world. Well, it's okay. Go look it up. Or not, no, go look it up. Zzzt, wrong, Pierce. Go find out. Look at things like honeycombs and how certain flowers are arranged. Anything naturally occurring with the number 6, and you'll be able to answer it pretty quickly next time. Has to do with economy.
Symmetry or economy?
Economy, yeah. It's the best shape. Something in 6 is the best shape for packing the most into the smallest area, most individual things into the smallest area. Nature does it. It's also very solid. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you anymore. Go find out. They all have their natures, right? 2. Do you really know the nature of 2? It's actually kind of hard to find here, to believe it or not. We never see 2 the way it really is. All right, I'm going to back off for a minute. Are you having fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't had goosebumps in a while, so this was fantastic.
Good. Yeah.
With our, well, I shouldn't say that. I not to this many times in one session.
Multiple goosebump meeting. Yeah. Sachin. Dough. The thought to start a business, the concept. Ray. Aggregation, right? Collecting things. You're going to start a grocery store. You need inventory. You need cash registers, right? Aggregation. We'll just say AG, not to be confused with gold. Me. The ecology to do it in, right? It's one thing to have a bunch of groceries and another thing to have a grocery store. That's the ecology. Do, re, mi. So ecology, EC. Then you get the shock. All right, there you are in your grocery store. You have a building, you have a space, you have your equipment, you have your vegetables and fruits and meats and cheeses and all the rest. What do you need then? Customers, exactly. And the way that the ray of creation works, do, re, mi, shock, is that it needs something from the outside to come in. You can't go customers, right? You can't like manufacture customers. It's not part of the process. You build it, and then you need to do something, advertise, whatever the case is, to get that external influence in, right? Then it can go fa, sol, la, si, and there's various different things that happen with that, right? Fa, very, very tricky. Fa has to do with things like your reputation in the business realms. Yeah, you can either faint.
Yes, that's a shock, right? Both of those are shocks.
Yeah.
Right? The customers is a shock. It's a significant change to
Absolutely. And below it is also a shock before you have the idea, right? Because that's C from the octave below it, isn't it?
I think below it is, I want to say I was another call earlier before this. It's like, this is the this is the nothingness
Mhm.
point.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no creator, there's no observer, there is no shock, there's nothing. So the very first one, without that, nothing exists.
Mhm.
So it's
You're
the
right.
first and biggest, most important shock.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. The one below it is going from nothingness to concept. Had the eureka moment, right? I'm going to start a grocery store or a boutique or whatever the case is. Yeah. Anyway, it's not necessarily a business lesson, but it applies. It applies to absolutely everything. I want to get across two things today. One, go be explorers, because the more you have, the more inventory you have in yourself, the more stock you have in yourself, the more you're able to kind of add things up, but not necessarily from a cultural standpoint. You don't need to have, 4 or 5 PhDs in various arts and sciences to be able to do this. The other thing is this idea of as above, so below, this kind of symmetry. We see it in the ray of creation. We see it in the ray of creation of water. We see it in the ray of creation of the musical scale. We see it in the ray of creation of business. We see it in the ray of creation of growth, human growth, or any kind of organic life growth, and so on. Even epochs have it. There are slowdown phases where something has to happen. Yeah. Anyway. You have something to do. Do you have a new appreciation of groundwork?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark? What
Yeah,
else is
very much.
what else is going on for you in this? This isn't heavy, by the way.
Say it again.
I hope this isn't heavy.
No, it's not.
For me, God, I feel so buoyant. Like I literally,
Yeah.
the story of the Buddhist monk, right? That they had to chain him to the ground because all he ever did was deal in the high end of the bar of things, and he kept floating away. Right? They had to physically chain him down. Certain buoyancy about.
Now, this has come across well because I think that a lot of people think that groundwork is a bit daunting, and that if they don't get a result straight away, then it's off-putting. But just that formula that you've got behind you is brilliant.
This one.
Yeah. It's just the whole concept of it, because the number of times that I've heard the daffodil lesson, and it just hasn't caused any real appreciation in me because it was so abstract. And I don't know if this is an indication of my personality or whatever, but just looking at it from that sort of formula approach just makes it seem, oh yeah, that makes just total sense.
Yeah.
That makes much more sense.
The problem with the daffodil lesson is that the only person in the Eamon who ever understood it was just Leo.
Yeah. That's the sense that I got, because when it was being put across, it was being put across in a reheat way of just going through it, rather than actually connecting to what the essence of that lesson was to do with.
Yeah.
And unless it's something that comes across with a bit of passion, what is it connecting to other than just something that's dry?
Yeah.
And it isn't just that it's the formula as such. It's just something that has come across as, yeah, that's how it works. Because I can't recall any time in any meeting where it was ever explained this bit about being food. It might have been cursorily just mentioned, but the part
What do you mean? What food?
that in the formula
Uh-huh.
where it's saying about part of the process creating food.
Oh, right, for the higher orders of
Yeah,
creation.
to 10.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, again, it was like it was just broadly mentioned, but not with any real understanding.
Mhm.
And partly, I think that was because that if something is considered to be food, then it's something low, as
Ah,
opposed to it being a byproduct, a natural byproduct process of when you're getting into something and something higher is coming in, then by generation and also by displacement of what it is that a person was in before, is going to create food for something else.
yeah.
And it just makes total sense. And that food thing was something I've been kicking around this past week or two.
Right.
And again, it came that, how can I put this tactfully? How things weren't put across in the way that they needed to be put across because of people's attachments to what they thought that certain things meant. Like if you food for something, or if you generate food for something, it means that it isn't a high process, which is total bullshit.
Yeah, it's the other way around, actually.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It is your higher process that generates food for higher things. You know, this is, I mean, people think that angels or essences or, you know, high attendant forces in creation should just come and join them because of who they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know what? This is exactly what we've been speaking about.
Yeah, I must be picking up on it. And
Yeah.
it's not the case. It's not who you are that's going to attract angels and essences and all this. It's what you do. Right.
Yes.
The rabbit's going to come up to the plant, let alone eat it. Okay. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
But a human is going to come up, you know, come into a rainforest because the air is so pure there.
Mm.
Right. It's going to be attractive. A forest is going to be attractive to higher than plant life. Right. Completely useless for the plants, isn't it? Right. There's oxygen. Here's the thing about the work. Sometimes you get lit up about something. This is really, really clever, actually. Sometimes you get lit up about something that's not even for you. Yeah. It's for that. It's for that. Or it's for the planet. You see, in the rest of the formula, that bit is you, that CH2O, right? That glucose. That's for you. You get to keep that. But then you also get to nourish something higher up in creation, and you get to make a return to the planet. In the case of H2O in the formula, that actually goes back into someone else, some other human's life, doesn't it? Metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Right? If that's the essence, then you kind of contribute back to the essence of what it is to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's probably a million different ways we could have tackled this today. Chemistry is just one example, right? You can't do it unless you know some chemistry, but it's just one example. I would almost encourage you all to challenge yourself to go find the ray of creation, or actually the process, this very same process somewhere else, because I guarantee you there's a million of them out there. You just got to know what you're looking for. Yeah. I shaved my beard because sometimes I just like to let things breathe. And funny, our own perception of ourselves, right? Because I told Pleiades that, I feel like I look 10 years younger than I really am when I shave my beard. And she goes, no, not really. You just look more wise with a beard. And so we came to the conclusion that I just look 10 years stupider.
Nice one. No,
Yeah.
no, that's good.
Yeah. Oh well. Why don't you take that as a challenge?
Yeah.
See where else you can find this, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in chemistry. I guarantee you can go for a walk and find this somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not even overloaded, which is nice this time.
Yeah.
No 4-hour naps required.
It's only 3.5.
Oh, right. Okay, good. That's called your building tolerances. Yeah. Well, once we start talking about things like iridium, we're
Yeah.
speaking about, I've gathered it's going to be about 2,000 more years in the future before it becomes really readily available. So consider where you are in things. The fact that it's even trying to show up to us, not to me, to us. Yeah.
It's gonna show up. Pierce, this is actually interesting. We are at 6 minutes past. Can we keep going?
Yeah, sure.
So, kind of where we are, we are at an inflection point. We are at a shock point, whatever you call it.
In the
We
meeting.
don't know. Huh?
In the meeting?
No, just us, humanity.
Yeah,
creation.
right.
And I don't know how many people are thinking about where we are going. I mean, I really don't. I'm in my own bubble. We are. I mean, at least I am. I don't feel confident that we're gonna evolve from here. There's a good chance that we devolve from here. There's a good chance that we get destroyed. And in that case, it will take 2,000 years or more. But if we don't, if we actually figure this out and if we evolve from here, then it is going to be a lot less. I hope it's a lot less. But if we don't destroy ourselves, if we don't get put back, then where we are now feels there is a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And it's being magnified as we speak. That potential is being magnified because humanity is at this shock point where everybody is really trying hard. If we can only figure out how to put all that trying really hard for destructive purposes into doing it for good, then our evolution speeds up.
Well,
I don't
the
know
thing, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. The thing is that it's not just about humanity figuring it out, because the nature of a shock is it has to come from an outside influence. But it is also fair to say that outside influence is always there. Take a plant. Go back to the plant and the whole chlorophyll reaction, right? That's going on. The plant's smart enough to put itself into the light however it can. It will try. It will, if you don't rotate plants once in a while, as you probably know, they'll just start growing to whatever direction the sun keeps coming from the most. But they do this. They try and put themselves in a position to be able to get what it is that they need. Now, if you put it under a bucket or a trash bin and it can't get any light, the light's still there, isn't it? I mean, the sun still shines, but the plant can't get to it. And I would say that bucket right now is our culture. It blocks out that kind of inspiration.
I want to say it's a porous bucket.
What now? Yeah, right.
Porous.
It's a faulty bucket. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's got lots of leaks in it. We just have to poke our finger and make
You're
it a
right.
bigger hole. That's it.
Yeah. Or it's made of, tissue, like a real fine tissue that you can poke through. Yeah. The analogy only goes so far, but you get the idea. that inspiration is always out there waiting to be found. But for whatever reason, humans aren't opting to lean towards it, to lean into that higher aspect, that energy of creation. We can't manufacture it. Not here anyway. There's other places where you can.
It's kind of interesting. Like, what is that bucket? From a, I mean, the way I think of it, what are those buckets? The one that really comes to my mind is largely a fixation on one type of capital, which is money.
One type of what?
One type of capital.
Hmm.
There are several types of capital. Like we are a capitalist society, at least. Yeah, I think Amaris, I think you are in a capitalist. I don't know. Are you Iraq or Iran? Where are Iran?
Iran.
Yeah. So maybe not as capitalist over there. A little bit better, hopefully better for the people. But at least the West is a capitalist society, which is very focused on one form of capital, which is money, at a complete disregard for human capital, societal capital, emotional capital. So to me, that's a bucket. Like if we can only get humanity to see there are other forms of capital, there are other forms of capital that we are depleting at a very rapid pace. If we don't fill those up, if we don't put out that food, then we're going to be in trouble.
Well said. Yeah. This brings something to mind for me. Okay, we talk about these three, light, love, and life. But what comes in the bar? In other words, what are the bars? I'm going to draw arrows here. These are the terminal points, light, love, and life. But what happens when you mix light and life? What is that? What's that called? Light and life coming together and marrying. Or light and love.
And light and love is, to me at least, it's the angel or the spiritual aspects of our existence.
I'll give you a hint on something. Doing. I'll name this bar. Love and life.
The love and life is pretty clear. It feels like more of us, like more of life.
Giving you the easy one, yeah. But that's doing. That's called doing. The bar that connects love and life, because I mean, we even have expressions, don't we? Do what you love in life. People do what they love in life. So that's that one. What's light in life? What's that bar?
Maybe having.
Having. I'll tell you what, let's play a game. I'm going to write down the other two, and you all figure out where they go, okay? Knowing and being. By the way, you're not wrong, Kimberly. It's just that would belong to a different triad of forces. So there would be like having, taking, giving, those types of things. But in this particular triad, we've got doing, we know that's love and life. Where does knowing belong? Does it belong between light and life, or between light and love?
Light and love, I think, is for being.
Light and love.
I'm not sure.
Let's try it there and see if it fits. By the way, we're doing more groundwork, okay? If you hadn't noticed. Does it fit there? Explain why. There's no right or wrong. Explain why you think it belongs there.
I was just doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Poor tiger. Poor tiger.
Didn't think enough. I'm going to retract that I said anything.
50% odds. It's not bad.
Enough. I can't back 50%. I'll take this.
Yeah, right. Which means that knowing would be light and life. I would agree with you. I would agree with that. So now we have this light, love, life, but in a context of what a human can manifest, knowing, being, and doing. I would agree with you, Sachin. That's your sunshine right there.
I think I can kind of justify light and life as knowing more than I can justify is not the right word. I can rationalize light and life as knowing more. I can just rationalize that more than I can rationalize light and love as being. I think like if you just from a very physical point of view, just shining light, just getting more knowledge. I see light as more knowledge and more detail or more information. Just having more light for aspects of life, or living the light, or living a life of seeking the light is just going to get you to a place where you know more. It's just a natural progression.
Yeah.
From the love and light, maybe I don't know. I'll let somebody else take a shot at that. Come on, Mark.
Yeah, just like you, I lent more for knowing, being between light and life, because of same kind of explanation that there's inspiration, things coming in, yeah, but the being between light and love, again, it feels right, but to actually be able to explain it is harder. Now, what that then causes in me is, okay, so between light and love, being is more of a feeling in me at this time. And I'm then thinking, well, why is that? Why is it? And again, this is part of the whole thing with groundwork, is to constantly have this why. What does it lead to? What's at play? What's causing it? And I've got absolutely no conclusions as to why it is that being is more of a feeling thing and the knowing is more about, yeah, that fits. Yeah, it's
look at the other triad I wrote.
okay. What you got?
Can you see? I've got consciousness. Instead of light, I've got consciousness. Instead of life, I've got ecology. And instead of love, I have affinity.
Can you
What are the three words again? Can't really see it.
Consciousness. Instead of light, consciousness. Instead of life, ecology. And instead of love, affinity. Affinity is the connection of things. That should clear it up a bit.
I mean, the other thing that I'm a little confused about, I thought what Kimberly said, having seems to fit between love and light more than
between love and life.
Love and light. So instead of being, having seems to fit. Just it's easier.
Okay. It depends on what you mean, or it depends on what you and Kimberly mean. Because in a certain respect, I can agree. Being is a state of having, right? I'm not saying like human being, but what you are.
I think if you look at the unconditional love aspects of love, and if you look at the possessive aspects of love, like the unconditional aspect seems to make being more suitable, and the more the more possessive aspect of it or more emotionally attached aspect of it seems to make having more appropriate.
Right. So then we start talking about octaves of this. Under knowing, a lower order of knowing would be opinion. An opinion, right? A lot of people claim that their opinions are knowledge, but they're not necessarily. Under doing, maybe wanting, wishing, yeah, possibly. And under being, having. Maybe that's one way to look at it. Because there are octaves and higher and lower aspects of things.
Okay.
Anyway,
It's interesting what Sachin just said, because before we had the choice of the words being and knowing, the word that came to me between love and light was caring.
Caring. Yeah, that would be even higher octave, wouldn't it?
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more unconditional than even being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or even giving. I don't know if giving fits in the same. Is it the same active as caring?
So then that places discovering above knowing in that octave. More active process. Care is a quality. Discovery is also a quality if you do it right.
Yeah.
Where would this be? What would be the higher octave above doing? I have one.
Teaching.
Generating. That's what I would say.
Ah, yeah.
Being generative, yeah. Wishing, lowest. Doing, middle. Generating, highest, right? Opinion, lowest. Knowing, middle. Discovery, highest, or discovering. Having, lowest. Being, middle. Caring. That's an interesting one, caring, because it implies equality, doesn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. People in our culture don't understand what care is. It is such a rare quality.
They'll understand it if you pay them back for it.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
the
Then they
problem.
care, don't they?
The
Yeah.
problem, though, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
We're
Sure.
missing the integral aspects of care because we've got too much need for one type of capital.
I mean, if someone has a filthy house and claims to be caring, a caring person, wouldn't you kind of suspect a bit of deception there? I would.
Yeah.
If someone walks by a bit of trash on the ground but says that they're a caring person, I would call that hypocrisy, because it's not the kind of quality that only manifests in certain places. Cheap caring does. Cheap caring is selective, but the actual essence of care wouldn't allow such a thing to exist in their environment. They wouldn't be able to walk by a bit of trash on the ground and not pick it up. Yeah.
I don't know, Pierce. This is quite interesting because I definitely do not pick up after stuff that I and Kim will know this. Like I live in a house. I'm house hacking, right? So I'm living in a house that I bought, and I have 3 roommates, and I'm trying to set it up in such a way that I can leave and have this become an investment property. And I'm trying to get everybody to pick up after themselves, and I'm also saying I'm not going to pick up everybody because that's not like, okay, I own the house, I'm the landlord, blah 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 blah. But this is not sustainable. Then I'll be taking care of everybody. Then this house will never sustain itself.
Right.
So it needs to sustain.
We're talking about 2 different things, though.
Yeah, I think so. I think the aspect here is like if I'm walking down a street, well, I mean the same thing. Like if I'm walking down a street in a neighborhood that is generally pretty well taken care of and generally clean, and if I see a a chip bag, an empty chip bag, I'll pick it up and throw it in the bin.
Yeah.
Right. If I am from a park and I see, a can of Coke or a bottle of beer sitting on the grass, I will probably pick it up and take it out of the way. But I'm not going to go there if it's all strewn with somebody that's left a party. Somebody just had a party and they made a mess. I'm not going to clean that up. It's not my job. Like, to a certain extent, I'm taking on too much.
Sure.
Something doing that.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. There's a balance, because, if you set out to clean up the planet, well, truth be told, if you set out to clean up the planet and you actually lived that life where you literally went around the planet and for as long as you lived and tried to clean things up, you would be loved in creation for sure, and you would probably have a job waiting for you higher up in creation. But would you have time for anything else? No. Yeah. So
Wouldn't have, and you also would get all the nastiest diseases possible.
yeah, right. And you got to consider too that care includes the self as well.
Good point.
Can't exclude that.
Yeah.
All right. Great work today, everyone.
Just before we go,
Yeah.
that generating word that we cut there,
Yeah.
brings us right way back to what we were speaking about at the very beginning about entitlement, where people think that because they are who they are, they've been in something for so long,
Yeah.
that they are entitled to recognition, attendance, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But that sitting between love and life, yeah, talks about the passion for what a person does,
Yeah.
and that can't come from entitlement, because it's what a person's actually done with what they know,
Yeah.
and for the right reason, the right sentiment. So yeah, when you wrote that down, I just thought, well, we're going right the way back to how today started.
Right.
Yeah. Before you go, you haven't put the words between those other three, or is that our homework?
Why don't you do it? Tackle it if you wish to.
Yeah.
I don't even know if those are the right words. That's just what dropped in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Again, today has been about showing. It's like I put on a performance. I showed you how I ground work. You don't even have to do it the way I ground work. You don't have to ground work the way I ground work. But it's gotten me somewhere. So, pick up the bits and pieces that you might find useful. Yeah. Well, did my dance today.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. Right. Great. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Well done, all of you. Very well done.